Hello, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk Automation. The overall objective of this podcast is to simplify and decode the complex processes of automation. And on today's episode, we're super lucky to be joined by Hikari Senju, who's the CEO of Omneky. And Omneky essentially allows marketing teams to scale their ad campaigns by creating personalized messaging and graphics through automation and AI. And in this discussion, we're going to be speaking about Hikari, about the possibilities that AI offers teams by allowing them to focus on higher value work. So without further ado, Hikari, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Armand.
It's awesome to have you. And I thought we'd start by providing context to our listeners about what Omneky does and sort of the problem statement that you were solving for marketers and how your platform specifically addresses what their challenges were.
Sure, yes. So Omniki generates personalized ads at scale. And our mission is to empower human creativity and to democratize growth so that growth is accessible for all businesses, big or small. The reality is, and this is according to Neil Patel, who's a big marketer, is that 62% of small businesses fail with their Facebook advertising. So we live in a world where most online advertising campaigns are not succeeding. And this is largely because they're not properly equipped to run successful online advertising campaigns. Online advertising campaigns require more frequent, faster creative iterations. I think it was actually Nielsen that said 47% of advertising performance is based on the ad creative. And it's actually probably a lot higher today. That was back in 2017. So we live in a world where most businesses, they need to advertise online, but they don't have the resources to really scale their creative and create personalized ads at scale to run effective marketing campaigns. And that's really where we come in.
So I had a question there, and sorry, when I'm doing this, I'm constantly muting and unmuting on my microphone. So my question there was, you mentioned that most marketing teams, according to Neil Patel and the source that you cited, you said that most marketing teams fail in their campaigns. And I think just to provide some more context, what does that really mean? Are they not hitting the conversions that they want to hit? What does it mean to have a failing marketing campaign?
Yeah, they're not driving sales from their marketing campaigns. You generally want to have high return on ad spend as a big kind of metric that marketers use, which is the dollar value of sales divided by the cost of the marketing. And what's great about marketing today is that you can actually measure this. You can actually track how much sales and conversions each dollar in ad spend is driving. And the reality is that according to Neil Patel, 60% of small businesses are unhappy with the results of their marketing campaigns because usually the way it works is it's usually probably in-house marketer, but sometimes even the kind of the non-marketers kind of creating ads themselves, or maybe create one or two ads, kind of launching them on these online advertising platforms and kind of hoping that it will deliver results. But you actually really need to be more sophisticated in terms of one's approach to digital advertising. It is a very competitive space, and the competition is fierce, right? You're competing, as small business owners, competing with the big brands of the world that have infinite marketing budgets that can spend massive tons of money all day, and they have very sophisticated teams. And so small businesses have to compete with this, right? They have to compete for customers' attention. And where we come in is we use AI to generate personalized ads. And then kind of almost brute force performance from these platforms by generating a ton of ads, launching them on behalf of our customers, with our customers. Our customers approve all the ads. They provide the creative briefs and kind of the creative guidelines and the messaging goals, the campaign objectives to us. We create a ton of ads, like hundreds of thousands of ads a week. And then we use data to optimize the ads at scale at a cost that is affordable for most small businesses. Our average customer sees a 2.7x return on ad spend, which means our average customer is running their ads profitably. And ultimately, we're leveling the playing field for small businesses to compete online.
Okay, so that makes complete sense. And kind of what I'm getting from what you're saying is that through this automation and AI, what marketers used to be doing when they used to be spending time creating individual campaigns, you're allowing to multiply those campaigns through this automation, which allows marketers to then test multiple variables per campaign, right? And the more testing that you do then allows you to kind of curate whatever graphic or messaging works best. Why for marketers, and again for lay listeners who might be listening to this podcast, who maybe test automation experts or developing engineers or anything like that, why is that personalization in the marketing world for end audiences off of these platforms like Facebook, why is that so crucial?
Right. So I think it's important to take a step back and realize how these platforms work, right? How these platforms distribute content. These platforms are optimized towards engagement, and this applies to Facebook, and this applies to all the other social media platforms. It applies to all the other online advertising platforms. Is their main objective is to keep people engaged on their platforms. They need to keep those eyeballs on their apps, on their websites, and so that means that all content is made when an algorithm makes a decision whether to show a piece of content, they're making a decision whether that piece of content is going to keep that potential user on their platform or potentially leave their platform. This means that there's actually one massive gatekeeper when it comes to an advertiser marketing their product online, and it's not necessarily human. It's an algorithm. The algorithm is the gatekeeper for getting your message across. And then the way these algorithms work is it's essentially kind of like a multi-arm bandit, kind of like a algorithm, which is that like the algorithms test a piece of content. They give a couple of impressions to every piece of content. They see how it's engaging, and then they give more impressions to the pieces of content that are getting more impressions and getting more engagement. And so the more shots on goal you have, the more creative you're testing, the more shots on goal you have to then have a piece of content that breaks through these algorithmic filters to the customer that could then get engagement from the customer and then get more distribution. So we live in a world where the creative is the distribution. The creative determines your distribution, because the type of people who engage with a piece of content is what the algorithms will do more to show to similar people. So your creative will attract a certain type of person who the algorithms will then show more to, similar types of people, and then those people end up being the customers to your website or to your app or to your your business. And so you want to test all different types of messaging because it's going to attract different types of people, and those different types of people are going to ultimately drive certain kinds of return on ad spend for your business. So that's number one. I think the second thing that's important is that then you have to use all that data to see what are the pieces of content that are driving engagement, and then optimize based on that. So you say, okay, so this piece of content is getting a lot of impressions, or this piece of content is driving a lot of revenue. Now what can we learn from that to then create more content that can get us even more impressions, or can get us even more sales?
So when you're talking about that, again, from a marketer's perspective, we'll view that as kind of like A/B testing on steroids, right? Like you're testing so many aspects of this particular creative until you get to a point where you know what's working, and you're, like you said, you're scaling in the hundreds of thousands. And again, just to paint and just to paint a further picture for our audiences, and again to make sure that they have a complete view of what this looks like, what does this testing from a creative perspective, what are the changes that you're doing on these creatives to test what's working best? Like, what are the small little things that you're testing out to see what's effective?
Right. So we test everything, right? I mean, from the most basic components of the call to actions and the phrases and the keywords and what colors you're using and what imagery is in the image or video, to really the sequence of entities that appear within a video, or the scripts, or whether like the type of is it are there humans in it? Are there not humans in it? Is it a graphic? Is it infographic? Like we essentially deconstruct every piece of creative into every single conceivable feature set that can be used to describe this creative, and then we use that set of features to then build predictive models to say, okay, so what are the features that are driving sales for this particular audience? And we do this for every single audience that a customer is targeting. And then and then optimizing the ad creatives based on those insights.
Got it. So you're, if I understand it correctly, you're optimizing for two sets of things for marketers. You're optimizing both the audience targeting and allowing them to target several different characteristics, as well as the messaging and copy to those audiences, through doing all this testing through your automation platform. Now, I think what would be super interesting to go through, because I think there are parallels that can go into several different industries, right? In the automation test world, it might be writing manual test cases for a particular piece of software. But in the marketing world, it seems to be all of these little changes that marketers have to do, in terms of, moving logo placement or changing the color or changing the CTA. That's what humans were doing. Could you elaborate for us on what the redundant daily work for a lot of marketers look like on a daily basis? They're not using a software like this.
Right. So marketing is a component of basically two things, right? I think in most things are in the kind of, you can do like the high level strategic goals, and then like kind of the more, like the forest and the trees, right? And there will always be need for high level strategic decisions from marketers and from management, right? The tactical things regarding the day-to-day A/B testing of iteration of hundreds of thousands of creatives a week that we do on behalf of our customers. Number one, an AI can do better because a human can't create millions of iterations of ads. An AI can do this instantaneously. We're powered by GPT-3 to generate ads, ad copy, ad creative, ad script, like video scripts at scale that are personalized, creates millions of iterations. A human team can't do this as well as an AI can. So not only is it to your point, automatable versus non-automatable, I would say actually that it's probably better to leave certain components, like let an algorithm kind of figure out how to, like brute force performance out of another algorithm. What you're fundamentally trying to do as marketers, you're trying to, kind of almost like hack these platforms algorithms, right, to deliver performance. And these algorithms operate in a certain set of logic to optimize their goals, which is revenue and growth and engagement. And so you're more better to utilize another deep learning algorithm to kind of drive performance from another algorithm than to kind of, as an individual human, kind of try to, you're going to be outgunned without kind of another algorithm on your side. And that's what we do.
Got it. And you mentioned at the beginning of that answer that humans should be, as part of this process, a very integral part, but a more strategic and tactical player in this kind of decision-making process for marketing teams. I think what would be useful, again, for listeners, and again, this can kind of be a parallel into several different industries, but could you give us maybe a few examples of what that looks like when creating a marketing campaign? What are the strategic decisions that humans need to make? Or you can take the question in the sense that, what should these marketers be focusing on now that they don't have to work on the redundant stuff, such as changing these small things on graphics?
Absolutely. So I could tell you how marketers operate on our platform, which could elucidate perhaps how it can be used in general. So generally the way it works for us is a customer sends their creative brief, sends their brand guidelines to us. Their images of the product, videos that they've created, UGC content they may have, they provide all that to us. We then create millions of different iterations of ads based on these assets, based on their copy, based on their website, and then we then send it back to the customers to approve. So it's never a situation where the customer is not in control of these algorithms, where the ads are just our AI is just launching ads on their behalf without the customer being in control of their brand. Oftentimes, to your point, because there are certain things that an AI can't do, right? An AI, doesn't doesn't intuitively understand what the vision of that company's management is in terms of what their long-term goals are, what their what their mission is. I mean, they can kind of understand this in terms of what is the copy that you have, and what people are engaging with, but like really what is the vision of that company? Only the management team, only the founders really have that. So they need to approve every single piece of advertising so that they make sure that it's aligned with that, number one. And then number two is there are also a lot of legal things, right? Like if you're a fintech company, there are certain regulations in terms of what you can market and what can't market. If you're a healthcare company, there are certain regulations in terms of what you can and can't say when it comes to marketing your product. And their legal team, the companies, our customers' legal teams and our customers' marketing teams will have a better intuition about what they feel comfortable saying on these platforms better than we do. So ultimately, this is why we built out an approval dashboard for customers to rapidly approve the ads. They can say, I approve this ad, I approve this ad, I don't like this ad. And they can also actually annotate directly into the ad creative, into the video. They can actually leave annotate into like a specific, second 5, this messaging is inaccurate or can't be said, or second 10, this imagery can't be used. That then gets fed back to our platforms. We can then make those edits to make sure that every single creative has the final approval of the customer, to make sure that everything that is being said is aligned with our customers' vision of what their company is and does, and what their mission is in the world.
Got it. And also so from what it seems like you're saying, so you're saying the human still is approving every part of the process that the technology is aiding with. But even to take a step back and for listeners who aren't marketers, maybe to give them more context, the kind of process that we're talking about is the actual execution of said campaign, right? So maybe Coca-Cola is running several different campaigns. Maybe they're running one on, low sugar and one on several different aspects of their marketing division. And then the AI and automation actually executing these campaigns and putting out several graphics. But can you talk about the role of the human still in deciding the type of campaigns that they launch? Because that aspect of decision making is still, which is the ultimate part of marketing, is still where teams maybe will focus more now on moving forward.
Yes, absolutely. So it starts with what are the like even identifying who are your customers, right? Who is your customer, and then how can we reach to them? What are the say, for example, paid social channels that we should advertise on, most likely to connect with your customer base. Some customers are gonna want to advertise more towards businesses, which is going to be probably better to advertise certain types of platforms than if you're targeting teenagers. It's going to probably be a different set of platforms. And so number one is just, who is your customer? Again, I think this is something that a business needs to decide who their customer is. An algorithm could potentially kind of boil the ocean to find your customer, but it's a lot more. It's a bit better to have clarity from the person saying, this is my customer, and then kind of optimize your product and your creative and your messaging against that customer. I think there's this really interesting component, which is language market fit, right? Like, who is your customer and what are the value props they care about? I think when a founder starts a company, they have a certain conception about who their customer is and what are the value props resonate. And this may be true, and they may actually find initial success with a certain value prop targeting a certain customer base. But as a company scales, and as a company needs to expand to additional audiences, that founder or that like leadership team sometimes tends to not have that intuition when in these kind of adjacent markets. And that's, again, I think really where AI can come in and help, and AI can help that team figure out what are the messaging that resonates for these larger audiences as a company kind of scales outside of their initial niche audience and targets larger audiences. So
Yeah.
that kind of like, I guess, like, who's your customer? What is what is the value? What are the core value props that you're trying to solve? What are the pain points you're trying to solve for customers? That is, you know, like what does your product do? Like these things needs
Mm-hmm.
to be, that clarity needs to come from the customers. That we can help with assisting in terms of discovering that that kind of ultimate, leadership has to come from the companies.
Yeah, and listening to that it sounds kind of like the fundamental hypothesis of both the companies and the different strategies that it wants to take still will, for the, foreseeable future will always be with humans. And then but the micro theories can be further tested and proved upon through the AI, which is again helping you with all the execution bits. And there's headlines all over the place constantly about, these terms of general AI and singularity, where AI will eventually become smarter than humans and be able to take over a lot of our, the tasks that we work on. I'm kind of interested on your thoughts on this spectrum of where we are in terms of our development in AI, across several different sectors. On this spectrum of regular AI to general AI and super intelligent AI, where do you feel we are?
Yeah. So um, I'm not too concerned about the singularity per se. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of more breakthroughs that need to happen in AI before that we reach that point. And I think, especially over the past, recent history, it's really predicated on one big breakthrough, one big innovation, that's deep learning, and that's really kind of resulted in this recent boom in AI. Now, whether an AI can, and that was created by humans, right? That was discovered by humans,
Mm-hmm.
and so now the question is whether an AI themselves can independently, without humans, create these breakthroughs and innovations on its own. You know, is a big question, and I think I'm not exactly sure if that's like 100% certain yet, whether that, like, an AI can. We're at a point where the AI can do that. I mean, maybe over a very long time frame, this is true, but so, like, singularity per se, I'm not sure. But in terms of what AI is capable of doing today, I think there is very real concerns regarding automation and work in the future of work, right? AI is very good at a lot of things that humans are very good at, which is like pattern matching and coming up with discovering patterns and utilizing those patterns to create content, create work, and do work, right? I mean, a large part of human work today is some element of pattern matching, whether you're a doctor or a lawyer, and that's something that AI can be better at with, because they have more data, they have more compute, and they have more. They just have a lot of resources, and it's accelerating, right? So, but at the same time, I think so. But at the same time, like, the fear of automation is nothing new. I mean, you had, what was it, Luddites, like hundreds of years ago, right? Like, break down these textile mills because they were like, that's going to take our jobs, and humans found new work, right, that they could not imagine today. So, whether there's always going to be new kinds of work that we can't even imagine today in this new economy. So, yeah, I would say that this fear of automation has always existed in human civilization, and we've always, human creativity tends to be better than this. We tend to create opportunities and find opportunities for additional ways of creating value for the world. So, I would say I'm generally an AI optimist. I think generally what it does is that technology does in general is it democratizes, it empowers humans to do. It gives more power to humans, right? I think this is the overall story and arc of technology, is that it empowers humans, regular humans, to do more things, and it gives more powers to regular, everyday humans to kind of leverage their creativity and their insights and their goals and their missions and their striving to kind of bring their vision to the world. So, And Omniki's mission is this as well, right? Omniki's mission is to power human creativity and to democratize growth with AI. So I am an AI optimist.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fear of automation is always been here. I think there'll always be a segment of the population like this, but yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of new industries, I think everyone listening and watching would have seen the metaverse presentation, and just watching that, you're seeing the whole new world of industries that will pop up if this new virtual reality and augmented reality landscape is to come to fruition. And I wanted to take a step back. We kind of talked about super intelligent AI, but I thought we could wrap up with the question of, where do you see the next step in marketing automation and AI? Right now, it feels like it's a lot of iteration and testing and execution and improving upon itself. But where do you think the next phase of this marketing intelligence moves toward?
Yeah, I mean, advertising is going to get more immersive, and it's going to get
Mhm.
richer content, richer media, right? I mean, you're going to see ads deep baked into videos, into VR, into AR.
Mhm.
They're going to be ads are going to be so deeply integrated into content and media, into your surrounding, that most people won't even realize that they're being personally advertised to, right?
Right.
So you're going to have potentially, today you have marketplaces for buying banners and buying, blocks of people's news feeds, right? But you're going to probably be able to buy. There's probably going to be a marketplace to buy, literally deep bake a product placement into a video that someone's watching, or
Yeah.
into their VR world, or things like this, and both in the VR and AR and even real world. And so I think that, why do people not like advertising? It's because traditionally advertising has just been very not really done well, right? It's just annoying, and it's intrusive, and it kind of disrupts your experience, and it's almost kind of like lacking social awareness in some ways. Like, these ads are just really in your face. Those ads, people don't like those ads. They're not great for the brand either, to have that kind of emotional reaction to it. And so, but a world where businesses can communicate their value props effectively and actually add value to people, is a world that benefits everyone. Benefits small businesses that are just getting started, that are providing unique value and providing unique products, and to customers that may be seeking these products and services. And so I think the future of advertising is that kind of matching happening more seamlessly, that benefits all the players, versus kind of the traditional method, which was kind of top down, like big business just shouting in your face, interrupting your experience, your entertainment experience. It's going to become a lot more subtle. It's going to become a lot more beneficial for the average consumer, and there's going to be there's like the internet. The first set of the internet, right after it was financed by the government, was financed by advertisers, right? And a large part of technological innovation, the radio, television, were after that big long R&D phase, tends to be financed by advertisers. So advertising is always going to be at the forefront of innovation in terms of media and communication, and you're going to have things like virtual beings that are going to be part brand, part human assistant, and for us ourselves, as Omniki, we're at the forefront of all these innovations, right? We're getting into GPT-3 generated television scripts, and advertising programmatic television, and doing more and more generative video content, and empowering creators to better tell their stories, and better and to make money online, helping businesses communicate their stories. And so I think it's an exciting time, and as long as people want free things, and as long as there's technical innovation, and there's going to be a role for advertising.
Awesome. I think that's a great place for us to wrap up, Hikari. That was a lot of fun. It was really interesting covering the current marketing automation landscape, as well as the strategic role that humans play versus, kind of the execution work of the AI and automation and kind of looking into the future of marketing automation. So thanks again for coming on the show. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Arman.
Thanks. And to the listeners, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and we will see you in the next episode.